Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. My name is Bernie McIntosh and I'm your MC for today. We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and also pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all Indigenous Australians present today. Welcome to our hybrid meeting to those online in the room. Thanks today will be given by Cheryl Lacey, followed by the Loyal Toast presented by Vice President Mary Barry. Please ensure your glass is charged. Over to you, Cheryl.
We meet in fellowship grounded in the values of Western civilization, where responsible freedom and the right to build your own future are held as foundations of a good society. Rotary was born from that same spirit. 4 small business owners choosing service through enterprise. Today, small businesses make up 98% of Australian companies, the backbone of our productive economy. With just over half of our 27 million citizens in the workforce, 5 million are employed in small business and 2.7 million in the charitable and not-for-profit sector. To uphold the values of Western civilization is to uphold Rotary's purpose, enterprise and responsibility. That is where the strength of both charity and society lies, with dignity, purpose and responsible freedom at the centre. For good food, fellowship and Rotary's founding purpose, we give thanks.
Rotarians and guests, give you a toast to Australia and Rotary International. Australia, Rotary International. Thank you. Please be seated. We will break for lunch, resuming at 1:15. And for anybody online, please take advantage of the breakout rooms. See you all soon. Members, visitors and guests, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our 34th meeting of this Rotary year and our 5,071st club meeting in our 104th year. Wonderful to see all of you here today, and particularly those also attending online. Now, President Catherine sends her apologies for today. As a reservist in the Army, she is invited to a special event at the Avalon Air Show, particularly interestingly featuring the latest tech in drones and a few other areas. So I'm sure it'll be extremely intriguing. Our guest speaker today is Nikki Blanch, co-founder, programs manager, Meals with Impact, and she's going to speak on Meals with Impact, Positive Change. Nikki will be more formally introduced by our chair of the day, Sandra Hills, and this will be later in the program. Now, in the meantime, would you please acknowledge and make both of them welcome? Thanks, please. As a club guest, we welcome Dr. Patricia von Matuschka, and Patricia will be shortly inducted into the club. I hope I got that pronunciation right. I probably didn't. Would you please join me in acknowledging and making Patricia welcome? Now, we also have other visiting Rotarians and visitors and guests. I would invite you and your host to stand when your name is announced and ask that you remain standing to enable the club to welcome you in a collective manner. Now, we have some international visiting Rotarians today. We have Dr. Josephine Juarez from Texas, USA. We have John Hancock from Bangkok in Thailand. And we have Teddy Kalau from Manila. He's also a director on the board, Rotary board there. I'd like to welcome all 3 of you. Now, I believe we have 2 banners to exchange, one from Teddy and one from Josephine. If you would both come to the stage, please. Okay, now I'll ask if you want to respond for a minute or so.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being so welcoming. My name is Dr. Josephine Juarez. I am based outside of San Antonio, Texas, in a small town called Fair Oaks Ranch. And so I come today to represent Fair Oaks Ranch Rotary. I've only been a Rotarian for just under 2 years, so I'm a fairly novice Rotarian, but certainly very dedicated to what we all represent and what we all work toward. So I just want to say thank you so much for just everyone has been just welcoming and gracious and kind. Thank you so much for that, and I look forward to meeting each of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have Teddy, and we're going to exchange banners as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Teddy Calao from the Rotary Club of Manila, the oldest in Asia. We were formed in 1919. I thank you for welcoming me and all the other your Rotarian guests here. It's always been a pleasure for us to do what we call reciprocal visits, because 3 weeks ago, we welcomed a member of the Rotary Club of Melbourne who also exchanged banners there. And we make it a point to always make sure that very soon after, within a month or 2 months, we have somebody try to do a reciprocal visit. And serendipity, I was here and I got the call. So thank you very much. It's always been always very touching to be welcomed when we do like what you do here. And from the Rotary Club of the oldest Rotary Club in Asia, it's let me say maraming salamat, or thank you very much to the oldest Rotary Club in Australia. Thank you.
Now we also have a guest of Rotarians. We have Noah Hefford, who's a guest of Demetrius Salampassis. Thank you. So we'd like to again just welcome all our guests, and it's great to have you all here today. Now, would Patricia please come forward for induction into the membership of the club? And I call on Patricia's sponsor, Debian Fu, to introduce her to the club.
Okay, Vice President Mary. It gives me much pleasure to introduce for membership of the club, Dr. Patricia von Matuschka, who holds the position of Economist and Lecturer for International Finance, and will have the classification of Economics, Macroeconomics. She will be a member of the Toorak 2 group. Her mentor of the club will be Rosemary Nixon, and she will be known in the club as Tita.
Good afternoon, Patricia. We welcome you as a member of the Rotary Club of Melbourne. Today, you enter an organisation of more than 1.1 million members in more than 36,000 clubs in 220 countries around the world, embracing the internationality of Rotary. We believe that you have the personal and professional qualities that will ensure the principles of Rotary will be safe in your keeping. The Rotary badge you will receive in a moment, and I hope you will wear with pride, indicates your commitment to the object of Rotary to which we all aspire. And we'd like to encourage you to the ideal of service above self. We expect that you'll become an ambassador from us to the community in which you live, and we ask that you convey Rotary's aims in all that you do. We look forward to your pursuing with us the great work of Rotary. So with this expectation, I offer you the right hand of fellowship, and I ask all our members to stand and welcome you as a member of our club. And now I will ask you to respond.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vice President Mary. Deb, thank you so much for welcoming me to Rotary Melbourne. Ever since I came to Melbourne, I was deeply impressed by the welcoming nature of, by the welcoming nature of all the people in Melbourne. Okay. And Rotary Melbourne has been no exception. So I was deeply grateful for the invitation to join Melbourne. I'll try to speak really loudly and hope everybody can hear. So Rotary Melbourne has been no exception in welcoming me with open arms, and I'm looking forward to not only meeting more of the incredible individuals that are part of Melbourne Rotary Club already, but in particular to giving back to the city that has welcomed me with open arms and giving back to the community. So thank you very much.
Let's try it again. Sorry about that, Patricia. Just a bit fickle today, I think. Okay, just some notices for a meal volunteering. A reminder to register today to join our volunteer packing night for a meal. We will gather from 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 9th of April, for our evening meeting at RMIT Story Hall and pack until 7. After that, we're invited to drinks or dinner in the Oxford Scholar, which is in the same building, just go downstairs, and I hope that you will join us on that night. Last year, we packed 12,800 meals, so we are hoping to beat that this year. So please do register and come along for a night of fun, fellowship and volunteering. I guarantee you will have an absolutely great night. Now, the Young Achiever Award, final reminder from the Vocational Service Committee that nominations for the Young Achiever Award close on the 31st of March. Please consider all your networks and help us to identify an impressive young person. The following criteria are considered when deciding the successful recipient. Candidate must be between 18 and 26 years old. Candidate must have demonstrated outstanding success in vocational training, academic, sporting, artistic, or business pursuits. Must also have made a significant contribution in the form of service to the community. And if you do know anybody, please speak to Marglaser or Iqbal Rita, and they will give you further information and have a chat to you about your proposed applicant. This is always a highlight of the club, so we really do want you to put your thinking caps on and see if you can find an inspiring young person. After all, that is the future of Rotary. Now, to the business of the day. Would our chair, Sandra Hills, please come to the podium and take over today's meeting?
Thank you, Mary. Is that okay? I'm a bit of a ringing today. Stephen Rando was to be the chair, but you've got me instead, so there you go. I'm very welcome. I'm very happy to be welcoming Nikki Blanch, who is the founder of Meals with Impact over here. And their mission is we exist to empower women from migrant and refugee backgrounds to find employment success through our shared love of food. We're on a mission to create systemic change against inequitable barriers to employment. And today's topic is Meals with Impact, Positive Change. So just a bit about Nikki. So she's the co-founder and Programs and Social Impact Manager at Meals with Impact, which is a work-integrated social enterprise based in Melbourne CBD. I've learned that it's in the Docklands. She's a seasoned community development specialist who has worked extensively with cold communities in the inner northwest of Melbourne, and she has a passion for connecting people through creative co-design projects that have community wellbeing at its heart. Nikki has worked in roles in local government, community-based centres for education and mental health organisations, and she has enjoyed diverse work experiences that informed the development of Meals with Impact in 2021 around the time of COVID. She'll talk to you about that. With a focus on the empowerment of cold women through work and food as a universal language, and Connector, Meals with Impact is a passion project that inspires every day. So would you please join me in welcoming Nikki? Let's hear about Meals with Impact. Come on up, Nikki.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Hopefully the microphone behaves for me. So I've been given a really lovely introduction. So I feel like my background needs no more introduction, and I can dive into a little bit about the story of Meals with Impact. But before I start, I'd love to see a show of hands in the room. Who is aware of social enterprises and supports social enterprises in their daily purchasing? Fantastic, that's most of the room. So you don't need too much of an introduction to how a social enterprise is different to a traditional business model. But I think it's very interesting to note that in Victoria, we have the largest social enterprise sector in the whole of Australia. We have over 3,200 social enterprises currently in Victoria. And it's just such a wonderful collaborative ecosystem to be a part of. It's incredibly supportive. Everyone out there is all trying to achieve some sort of social or environmental or a welfare impact that benefits the community. So you meet some extraordinary people that are in the social enterprise sector. And we're what's known in our sector as a work integrated social enterprise, which means that our primary focus is on employment. And as Sandra introduced, we are focused on supporting women from migrant and refugee backgrounds at Meals with Impact. And that's because we recognise that they face some of the toughest, the longest term and most systemic barriers to gaining and maintaining employment in Australia. They're all the barriers that you can imagine. So language barriers being one of those primary factors when you arrive in Australia. There's that lack of recognition for overseas qualifications. Caregiving duties often prevent women from getting into work for a very long time. Cultural differences, it's lack of local networks and lack of work experience in the Australian context. So at Meals with Impact, we really aim to create that open door so women can come to us and have their first employment opportunity in Australia. And we have this wonderful opportunity to work with women who come from a very broad spectrum of experience as well. So at one end of the scale, we have women who have very limited access to education. They may have finished school at around a grade 6 level, and that might be due to the experience of displacement through war. It may be due to cultural norms where education is just not supported past that level. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have women who have master's degrees and very significant career experience. And yet they're both in the same boat. They're both experiencing that closed door. And so they come to us also often having gone through lots of certificate programs as well. So what I find after years of work in the sector is that the way that our welfare system supports women generally is to push them through lots of courses and programs. And they're told, this will help you to get a job. And it might be years later and they still haven't got the job. So when I meet them, they're feeling really disempowered. And they say, look, I've got these 6 certificates and I was told that this would help me to get the job, but I still haven't had any opportunities to apply any of this learning. So this is something that Meals with Impact has tried to address. So we believe there's this missing middle piece, which is all about creating opportunities for that hands-on integrated work experience. You need a safe and comfortable starting point to be able to learn about Australian workplace customs and systems and policies. And so it's all about creating that nurturing environment where women can bring all of their skills and talents to the fore and have a safe space to practice that. So we do work with a very strengths-focused approach. And that means that when women come to us, we actually screen them for not only background experience and skills and qualifications, but what are the transferable skills that you come with? How can we highlight those in your work experience here? And we can work in quite a tailored way where women that might have very limited language skills, they get to work in the kitchen alongside kitchen hands and our chefs. You don't need a lot of shared language to be able to cook and share food together. And then we also offer opportunities to do customer service and administrative duties for the business as well. So we can create quite a tailored environment for them. So we work with this hospitality model because we know that it's one of the best places to develop the soft skills that are so essential and applicable across a real diversity of industries. We also are able to provide a range of wraparound supports. So part of my role as the programs manager is to work individually with women to be able to provide access to support services that they might not be aware of in Australia. And that covers that spectrum from childcare, educational supports, through to language supports, mental health, housing. So part of my work is really to have, a big toolkit and a really big list of services that we can provide really easy access to. So our secondary mission, which wasn't mentioned as much in the intro, is that we also provide culturally diverse food relief right across Melbourne. So I'll tell you a little bit about our origin story in a minute, but we do halal and really culturally diverse food relief because we know that food insecurity is on the rise. There's currently 1 in 4 people in the city of Melbourne are experiencing food insecurity, and we know that those numbers are only increasing. So it's always been a part of our core mission, is that we can actually share the food that we create with recipients that most need it. So currently we do that through a corporate volunteering program, which is where corporate teams, who are mostly based in the Docklands, where our cafe and community hub is, they come in, they pay a set fee, and they're able to both prep food and package pre-cooked meals for food relief. And so at the moment, we're doing anywhere from 200 to 600 meals per week that are getting distributed through various charity partners. So 600 meals a week sounds very small when you consider 12,800 meals in a night. That's a really impressive number. So this leads me to the backstory of Meals with Impact. So why do we have these 2 focus areas? Why did we choose women's employment and also food relief? So you'll all remember in 2020 when the hard lockdowns were placed onto the public housing estates right across Melbourne. So I was working in North Melbourne at the time at the base of one of those housing estates. They were locked down for the longest time, so it was a bit over 3 weeks that the community in those public housing towers were not allowed to leave their homes. And what we saw was the government's attempts to try and address the situation, but what actually achieved action and got food and medical support and clothing and all the essential supplies into the community was locally based action. So we saw it was the children of the families that lived in there. It was local community groups. They came from all different cultures. And I got to witness that and be a part of mobilising that very grassroots community action that was able to support those communities. And out of the learnings of those weeks, I was then recruited in to deliver a project for local government called Mama's Kitchen, which was meant to address what is recognised as the human rights abuses at that time. The government sought to address those errors by funding employment and food relief focused projects. So the Mama's Kitchen project was born. We were based in the clock tower at Moonee Ponds, and we employed 14 women who were from the public housing estates in both Ascot Vale and Flemington. So over a 12-month period, we had a 100% retention rate of this group of women, and the majority of them had never worked before, mostly from Northeast Africa, but also some of the Middle Eastern countries as well. Over that year, we saw their development from the initial week when they all started. We produced 50 meals for food relief. By the end of the 12 months, they were producing 600 meals a week, which was a phenomenal effort. But not only were we doing those meals every week, we designed a door-to-door delivery service because they knew where the community members were in those public housing towers that couldn't leave their homes, whether that was due to disability or illness or other factors. So we learned a lot during the development of that model. And at the end of that 12 months, when the funding ran out for Mama's Kitchen, I looked at the other co-founder of Meals with Impact, Harris Ryan. He was a chef who was brought in to deliver the food training component of that project. So we just looked at each other at the end of that year and thought, we have to continue this project. This is too valuable. We're seeing phenomenal outcomes for the women involved in the project. We're seeing the ripple impacts on their community, for education, for their children. We need to keep this going. Let's form a social enterprise. So we set out on the long journey of learning what that actually meant. Neither of us actually have a business background, but we came from these very complementary workspaces where Harris was an executive chef for some really fine dining restaurants and large catering companies. And I've come from a really strong background in mental health and community development work. So we combined forces and we put together a really phenomenal advisory board. And here we are 3.5 years later. And in that time, we've managed to establish a cafe that's in the Docklands. That's 2 years old. We've established a really successful catering business as part of that. And we're launching out into ready meals and a social impact kiosk currently, which is all about providing access to halal and really nutritious, culturally diverse meals for communities that might not have access to that. So that can be for anyone in construction companies, hospitals. We're talking about aged care at our table, universities, so students. So we're still all about addressing where do we see some of the primary issues impacting our culturally diverse communities, and how do we support an equality or equity of access to nutritious, good food and employment opportunities. I've got a story I'd like to share with you, which was what really, I guess, inspired us along the way. So in our early startup days, when we formed Meals with Impact, and we were doing food donations to Wingate Avenue Community Centre, which is based in Ascot Vale in the public housing estates. We got a phone call from the community development manager at this community service. And she said, I just need to share a story with you. So they run a weekly food relief market. So every Monday, they set up tables out the front. They have families that register to come and pick up food parcels. And the Meals with Impact meals had been part of that for a good 6 months. Now, part of the aim of a food relief market is not only to provide food relief, but it's also to engage the community. And through engaging with the community, you start to open up their access to information and support services that they might need. So they'd noticed a young Somali man who'd been lingering around for a few weeks, but had been a bit shy and I think clearly felt a bit too embarrassed to come forward and ask for some food relief support. But finally he came and he said, look, I'm really struggling. I don't really have any food at home. And I said, look, would you just like to come in and have a meal? So they took one of our meals, which was a Somali beef sukkah, which is a slow-cooked, slow-braised dish. It's cooked for 16 hours overnight, actually. So it's the most delicious dish with all these North African spices in it. And they sat down with him and heated up the meal. And when he opened the meal, he took a deep breath and he said, this reminds me of home. This is exactly like the food that my mum cooks at home. And from that point, he opened up. He started to tell him his story, and he then was connected to all the support services that he needed. So it was then that we realised we're on the right track, and we not only were providing food relief, but it's connection to culture, and it's a connection to the Australian community. So our meals are meant to provide that sense of welcome, and we know how important that is, especially when you're on a refugee or migrant or asylum seeker journey. It can be really, really hard to find your place and feel that sense of welcome. So our meals are really meant to provide a sense of welcome, and we see you, we acknowledge you, please share a meal with us. So that's a bit about the origin story and really how we knew we were on the right track with what we were doing. So with that story of positive impact as a bit of a starting point, I'd love to share a little bit about what we're currently up to. So in terms of the positive impacts to date, Meals with Impact has created 61 employment outcomes, and that's both through direct employment in our social enterprise, but also through indirect placements through pre-employment programs, and also through direct referral to our key employers. So I work with a range of employment-based services and also work with key employers, as well as the William Angliss Institute as our key training partner. So are people aware of the William Angliss Institute, which is based here in the city? Yep. So they're really our best hospitality trainer in Australia. They specialise in hospitality as a TAFE, and they're just fantastic. So I'm working with them currently in the delivery of a pre-employment program called My Work, My Way, which has been funded through the ANZ Community Foundation. So I'm seeing a group of 10 women through a 10-week pre-employment program. And what this looks like is that we have 4 weeks of more classroom-based learning, which is all about soft skill development as well as key skills in hospitality. We look at communication skills, there's financial literacy, there's work rights, understanding superannuation and taxation. We work with the Jobs and Skills Centre at the William Anglis Institute, who do training in developing your resume and actually doing interview practice, writing up cover letters, feeling confident, getting prepared to step into interviews. We also address things like resilience and wellbeing. It's really important to address how you manage stress in a new workplace. How do you communicate that? How do you actually feel that agency in a new work environment to actually go and speak to your manager when you can feel that something's not right? And then we look at the introduction to food and bev and actually hospitality-based skills as well. But like I said before, we work with this hospitality model not because we think all of the women want to go into hospitality jobs, but because it develops such a fantastic broad base of skills that can be applied in any job. So following this 4 weeks of classroom-based learning, we do work integrated experience at the Meals with Impact Cafe. So the women get to come in and do that hands-on learning and the application of skills in a real-life environment. And so once again, it's that integration of learning that we see as that important missing middle piece, and a safe space in which to make mistakes and just do learning and be mentored really strongly and supported in that journey. And I'm now in the last few weeks of the program where we're looking at that work transition and job placement. So my key employer partner is W Melbourne and the Marriott International chain. So we're looking at placements within the hotel chain because there's such a diversity of jobs that are available. They do start with very entry-level hospitality jobs, but then they can develop right through into managerial jobs in HR, working in finance teams, accounting teams. And like I said, I meet women all the time who have these extraordinary professional careers and backgrounds, but they've had very limited access to opportunity here in Australia. So I'm extremely excited to see how this group of graduates progresses. What I know from the previous program that I've developed and what I know from the evaluation studies is that they're having better retention rates with these program graduates. And that's why W Melbourne is such a strong supporter of these projects. What's very common in the hospitality industry is high turnover, and that has a massive cost to businesses. So we're finding that when we're actually putting more embedded learnings in place and we're creating a much more supported environment for women to learn in, you're going to have higher retention rates. Part of that is building workplace familiarity. So we take them on site. They've spent lots of time at W Melbourne throughout the program, so they already know all the staff over there. They're familiar with the hotel. They've done lots of role plays there. So they can feel themselves familiar with the environment. It's less intimidating, and so they can actually imagine themselves working there. And so for some of these women, it may take a little bit longer to gain employment. And we also provide the benefit of time as well. So we recognise for some there's not a finite ending point and a point at which they're completely job ready. So I do work very individually with women to provide that very tailored pathway, as I mentioned earlier. So just to wrap up, I'd like to say a little bit more about positive impacts. So I'd love to share a little bit from this week's evaluation session that I had with this current group of women. We ran a focus group, which was all about assessing the program that they've just been through. And I asked them if they could say in one word what their experience has been in the program. And the words that I got were connection, empowerment, confidence, learning, and knowledge. So that just really indicated to me that think we've really got something here. And I asked them also, what do they do with this, increased financial literacy? So they all reported having an increased sense of financial literacy. And we run this project really in collaboration as well with ANZ. So we had a fantastic financial coach from ANZ that came over and did some coaching sessions, as well as lessons on personal budgeting. And they all said, I've actually learned how to create buckets for my savings. And, I'm actually saving money now. I'm paying off some bills and I'm able to pay more for my children's education. So we know this is the primary outcome for women who are economically empowered. They all invest in their families. They invest in their children's education. So you've got a much deeper impact than empowering the individual. You're actually creating stronger educational outcomes for their children. So that for me is just such a fantastic outcome. We know that they're also experiencing that increased confidence. So that is also a primary outcome that they all agree on. They'll say, yes, I feel confident now in my abilities and I feel like I belong. We know that they have increased knowledge of the Australian workplace environment, so they know how to navigate employment-based systems and processes. So positive impacts. And I know I'm getting 20 minutes time, which I love as a nice clear cue. So I know where I will wrap up there. We do have some time for Q&A. So if there's anything that you feel I've missed in my talk, now's your time to ask questions. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Nikki. We do have some time for questions. Oh, dear me, stand back. Okay, the microphone's not working, the handheld. No, there's that one either. So who would like to ask a question? Just make sure, put your hand up, say your name. And Bernie, could you just check online to make sure I'm not ignoring our friends if a little yellow hand goes up that we know? Yeah, okay. All right, so I saw a hand.
Just turn off the microphone,
Peter.
Once again, Roger, very interesting. Well done on what you do. You started off by talking about programs like in the bottom of the housing blocks in North Melbourne and in Mooney, the clock tower.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering what support you've had from local government and all of that.
Well, that the Mama's Kitchen project, which was what led to the development of Meals of Impact, that was funded through the state government. So it was meant to be initially a 6-month program. They saw the benefits and extended it for another 6 months. So that was all state government funding. We've had great success with accessing some government funding for Meals with Impact. So the establishment of the cafe down in the Docklands, that was made possible through a state government grant, which covered a year of our lease and employment costs down there. So we have had some good success also with City of Melbourne with smaller pockets of funding. So both we've accessed some federal funding as well. But usually it's quite short term and can be difficult to access ongoing funding, as anyone that's run social enterprises knows.
Try again. I'm going to try again. I just want to. Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl Lacey here. Hello, on Peter's point there, and thank you for that answering your address to that question. You've mentioned funding, both federal and state, and how that was only a small amount, and you're producing income with what you're developing. So it's actually a manufacturing sort of concept through food. Does your strategy have a pathway to convert this social enterprise to business?
It's a great question. So as a social enterprise, we are an interesting business model. We're a hybrid business model where we are a registered charity, and as a social enterprise, we're a registered business, so proprietary limited. The aim is, of course, to be as financially self-sufficient as possible. What we do incur, though, in the social enterprise sector are what's recognised and documented now as social impact costs. So that's calculated at 30% higher than your average business. This is, I will focus on your question, but this is a bit of a roundabout. And that means that we actually, I joke about this quite a bit, actually. We run a very inefficient business model. because our whole training model is about training women to be job ready. So just at that point where you've got really efficient, fantastic employees, we're actually passing them on to the next employer. So we do run at higher costs. And yes, definitely the aim is that we transition into having a really solid business model. We work with our advisory board, who at least it's over half of them have really incredible business backgrounds. So we do get some mentoring and coaching in how to develop a strong business model, so that eventually in the future we aim to be at least 85% self-sufficient is what we aim, and hopefully 15% is ongoing philanthropic and external funding.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Just wanted to ask you, how do you actually measure the impact of using analytics, and also do you keep track of the women that go through the program? So what's kind of future engagement does your organization bring forward to that?
Yep. Fantastic question. So I work with a couple of different methodologies. The social impact measures change a little bit according to the funding and the program. So obviously there can be different objectives and outcomes depending on who the funder is. So that can change a little bit. But what's consistent is, so we do have the qualitative data of employment hours, salaries paid, number of women. And then the quantitative data, I work with a methodology called the most significant change, which is a really lovely narrative technique, which actually digs into the details of women's lives and what is the most significant change that has happened for you as a direct result of being engaged in this employment program. So we're able to gather, that's where you get some lovely narrative stories, I guess. So we're able to share those stories about women saying, well, I was able to invest in tutoring for my children and their sports, and, you know, we can afford educational supplies, which we couldn't afford before. But also something lovely that comes out of it is they talk about the improvements in their life administration. So the majority of women will say, because I'm now employed, I'm better at planning and organising my life, and everything's running a lot more smoothly because I've learned how to be more organised as a direct result of being an employee, having to turn up to work on time, manage, you know, the life admin part of being an employee has direct benefits in their personal lives as well.
No, I'm not going to touch it this time. I'm just going to stand back. Thank you, Nikki. You can see your passion. It just shows absolutely. Okay, it shows absolutely through, but I mean, I feel very strongly that people have to have an opportunity to make the best of their life. They do need a hand up. These people are disadvantaged and being. I
don't understand, Sandra. You're electric.
How being able to contribute and learn and be in a dignified way is really important. And I think what you've shown us is the number of partnerships that you've brought together with Marriott and the ANZ and the Foundation, and there's probably others we haven't thought about. That's fantastic. So when you're next thinking of your next corporate catering event, you should utilise the services of Food with Impact. So would you join with me in thanking Nikki?
I love socks.
She loves socks. I'm scared of it now. Okay, so just thank everyone for attending, our guests and visitors, and welcome again to our newest member. Thanks also, to MC Bernie McIntosh and for their reflections, Cheryl Blaze for her reflections, and our lunch setup team and reception teams for their efforts. And as usual, we ask if you could stay back to help out, pack everything up. That would be much appreciated. So next week, a reminder, we meet here at number 35, and our guest speaker will be Jacob Kane, President of the REIV, speaking on leading with vision, realising positive change in challenging issues. We could use that title to about anything, couldn't you? We hope you can join us next week. And so, you know, we've got David there, our maestro. So can you please stand to close the meeting?